My heart was thumping along with the continuous hammering of the rain on my Capitol Hill, Seattle apartment window. I sat stooped over my laptop figures, crunching for tomorrow's shift at the food processing plant at 8 o'clock in the evening. I groaned and picked up my phone after 5 calls of constant buzzing and the screen flashing, "Mom." At first, I ignored it since work was my getaway from family trouble. "Are you making fun of us, Lily Harper?" I was about to say hello when my mother Margaret let out a scream. The sharpness of her voice cut through the rain's background noise. "Half a cent? Is this some kind of joke to you?" My hands clenched around the phone as I became completely limp. "What on earth are you referring to, Mom? I've been consistently donating $4,000 each month. Tell me the truth, Robert." My dad grabbed the phone and started talking loudly. "From her modeling career, Chloe is bringing us 40 grand per month. What about you? Half a penny." "You're unbecoming, Lily." With the line cut off, all that remained were their words echoed and the relentless downpour. My thoughts was racing as I stood there taken aback. Half a penny. I had been working extra hours and going without meals in order to give the $5,000. Who would have thought I'd make fun of them, furthermore? Chloe, $40,000. Even though my sister was the crown jewel of their family, that figure didn't match up. My stomach knotted up with mistrust as I sensed something was amiss. Did Chloe tell them a lie? Was she trying to set me up? With the soft light from my thrift shop lamp painting shadows on the walls, I collapsed into the sofa. Even though my 400-square-foot apartment had peeling paint and a dripping faucet, it was mine, and a refuge from the mayhem of my family in Tacoma, which was an hour away by car. My upbringing was marked by stifling partiality, so I came here 3 years ago at the age of 25 in an attempt to escape it. Like the outer storm, the memory of it flashed back. I was the unassuming, unremarkable daughter, growing up sitting next to my 5-year younger sister, Chloe. Big blue eyes, golden locks, and a grin that stopped onlookers in their tracks were her birth defects. My parents would exclaim, "She's a star in the making," when they beheld her in her most recent Nordstrom gown, their expressions exuding pure delight. My oversized sweaters that had a subtle aroma of another person's life, worn jeans, and Goodwill hand-me-downs were my attire of choice. The grown-ups would touch my head and say, "Lily's so ordinary," just to make me laugh. Oh, Chloe, though, what a fantasy. My folks thought Chloe was destined for greatness as an actress or supermodel. Their path to fame and fortune, they said. She was given every opportunity, dance courses, modeling classes, even visits to Los Angeles, casting calls by them. My mother shouted at me and said, "We can't afford it, Lily," when I asked to enroll in ballet class because I wanted to learn how to do the pirouette. "We're saving for Chloe's future." Those words hurt like hell when I was 11 years old. My grandma, Eleanor, who died when I was 8 years old, was the only one who ever saw me. I was given the name Little Tulip by my mother. This moniker originated from the spring of my birth, when tulips were in full bloom in her garden. "Lily, my tulip, you're strong," she would remark as she sat me on her lap and braided my hair. She gave me a delicate silver necklace adorned with a little tulip pendant, a subtle symbol of her affection, and told me, "You will grow through any storm just like those flowers." I still wear it as a constant reminder of her love. A modest bequest of $10,000 was her last will and testament, and it was to remain in a trust until I reached the age of 30. I knew my parents hated that it was for me and not Chloe, even though they never said anything about it. Back home, the difference was obvious. In Chloe's room, there were pink ruffles and brand new toys. In my little living room, nook my bed was crammed next to a bookcase containing old pictures of my grandparents. My parents were unfazed when Chloe, at the age of 10, insisted on having her own bedroom. With his head buried in his newspaper, my dad threatened Lily, telling her to go to the basement. "You won't require much room," the landlord said, as I dragged my mattress down the squeaky stairs to the damp basement where a solitary light bulb dangled from the ceiling. Nonetheless, I complied. I learnt to control my temper and put myself in a little position when I was 15 years old. There was no going to school. Despite her lack of effort, Chloe's teachers gushed about her, even though I put in a lot of effort and got, as my parents never took attention. A commercial callback has been extended to Chloe. At dinner they would boast, while my report card would remain on the counter unattended. My mom made fun of me when I told her I wanted to be a school nurse. "Is it college, Lily, that is beyond our budget?" Work after finishing high school. Despite my disappointment, I nodded in agreement because debating served no use, and Chloe needed our support. Even though my parents had 2 jobs, my dad was a mechanic and my mom was a part-time receptionist, Chloe's dreams consumed every spare cent. I worked for a food processing factory 3 bus stops away from my house after finishing college, and my monthly salary was $3,500. Residing with my parents was like being submerged. I wanted to remain in Tacoma, save up, and perhaps start a life of my own. Meanwhile, Chloe basked in their adulation while staying rent-free. My parents' elation was palpable when, at the age of 22, she was discovered by a little modeling agency when she was shopping at a mall. Our girls headed for the big screen. As if I were non-existent, they crowded. I rented this little apartment in Seattle in hopes of finding peace of mind. It was challenging since my rent was $1,500 a month, which was half of my salary, but finally I could breathe. In honor of Grandma Eleanor, I used repurposed furniture and placed a single potted tulip on the ledge as decor. Everything was peaceful until Chloe's bright and sincere voice phoned me a year ago. "Lily, we are really indebted to our parents," she remarked. "All for our benefit, they have given up their lives. To express our appreciation, let's offer them a monetary gift. Is $4,000 a month too much? We'll divide it up." I trembled, even though I knew I couldn't afford to spend $4,000 without slashing corners. Chloe's comments made me feel guilty. "They owe us money," she continued, agreeing. "We need to help." I was naive about how this would bring me down. I endured bitter winters and sweltering summers while working as a security guard on a Bellevue building site on weekends to make ends meet. My savings were diminishing, but I justified it by saying I had to eat instant noodles and coffee to support my family. They were now making their allegations while I stared at my phone. Half a penny Chloe's 40 grand. It all didn't add up. The tulip pendant's cold metal grounded me as I clasped it. Grandma Eleanor's words resounded. "You'll grow through any storm." I was sick of being invisible, regardless of Chloe's actions. The quest for truth was the first step in making the necessary changes. Ever before my parents called, the rain had been pouring down relentlessly in Seattle, mirroring the storm that was building up inside of me. My laptop screen displayed my bank statement, and 2 days later, I sat at my shaky kitchen table gazing at it. Every month, as Chloe and I had planned, $4,000 was taken and deposited to my parents' account under the name Sunshine. The financial records proved it. Something more, though, was hidden in the transaction history, a pitiful 50-cent transfer recorded under my name, Lily Harper. It made my stomach turn. How did 50 cents become associated with my name? My parents thought Chloe was sending $40,000. Why? Every syllable of the allegation that sounded throughout the call, "You're a disgrace, Lily," continued to stab my already wounded heart. I reclined in my worn-out chair, my cramped Capitol Hill apartment, filled with the sound of its squeak. Grandma Eleanor had told me, "You're strong, my little tulip," and the weight of the tulip necklace around my neck was a constant reminder of that. However, it was difficult to draw strength from within when one's own relatives ridiculed them. I echoed Chloe's idea from last year when she was so enthusiastic over the phone. "Let's keep it a secret, Lily." It sounded like a lovely sisterly deal at the time. "Let's use a shared name, Sunshine, so it would be from both of us." It seemed like a trap now. Had Chloe planned this? Was she enjoying the compliments from our parents while she let me take the hit? I had to make it through the day alive before I could ask for answers. I was in a race against the clock since my shift at the food processing factory was about to begin in just 1 hour. My work boots with weak soles from months of double shifts were put on, and I took my raincoat with me. My thoughts were all over the place during the bus journey to the industrial park. The perfect obedient Chloe had always been a part of the family. But 40 grand each month, wow, it was ridiculous even for a model. A tiny agency, not a major Hollywood studio, had scouted her. My suspicions were like an itchy mite. Something just didn't seem right. You could hear the gears turning and smell the processed grains in the air at the factory. With my hands working almost instinctively, I sorted items on the conveyor line. Sarah, a witty and incisive coworker of mine, saw that I was absorbed in something other than my work. "Hey Harper, what's up?" With a grimace, she tossed a box upon the belt. "Want to work from a nice corner office?" "Dear, just focus on packing. You're not cut out for management," she said, and I held back the urge to respond negatively. Sarah insisted I earn a degree from UW, and she never once let me forget that I didn't. After midnight, I secretly began studying for a certification in supply chain management, devouring texts in my dogged pursuit of proving her incorrect. The allegations leveled by my parents were already heavy, but tonight her stab stung much harder. I endured the change despite the pain it caused me. Unfortunately, I was not met with any respite. It was 45 minutes by bus to Bellevue, where I worked as a security guard on weekends. I could only afford to give my parents $4,000 a month after paying my $1,500 rent and other essential costs with the additional $1,200 each month. An exposed framework of steel beams and concrete made up the site. My bulky uniform was a cooking oven in the summer, but this time of year the wind whipped through it and chilled me to the bone. With my boots mired in muck, I patrolled the perimeter with a flashlight. Even though it was hard labor, the team was nice. The site's temporary break area was frequented by Mike, a large foreman with a gap-toothed smile, who would occasionally sneak a coffee for me. "You're more resilient than most of these men, Lily," he would slyly observe, grinning. "Keep it up." His words of support provided some relief from the chill, but they weren't enough to quell my weariness or my mounting questions about the point of taking my own life for an invisible family, because I was too exhausted to do anything, not even cook. The instant noodles I had in the pantry, I crashed onto my couch when I got home that night. "Call me," Chloe texted, and my phone buzzed. I remained glued to the screen, my thumb tethered to the call button as we urgently needed to discuss Mom and Dad. The want to confront her and ask why my name was on the 50-cent transfer washed over me. But another half was hesitant. It was the part that recalled the girl who giggled and stole my crayons. While Chloe's egotism was nothing new, a new degree of treachery has been achieved. As I put the phone down, my gaze wanders to the windowsill planted tulip, the pale yellow petals of which contrast with the drab metropolis outside. Every spring in her yard in Tacoma, Grandma Eleanor would plant tulips, a flower that she adored. "They're survivors," she had informed me once while bending over and looking at the landscape. "They blossom even after the harshest winters." I traced the delicate contour of the pendant at my neck with my fingertips. At this very moment, if I were a tulip, I would be lying in the dirt, fighting to sprout. My faith was restored by the thought of Grandma Eleanor. At the age of 6, she discovered that I was sobbing after my parents had complimented Chloe's dance recital, but paid little attention to my science fair ribbon. I had been the only one who viewed me as Lily, her little tulip, rather than Chloe's shadow. "Lily, you don't need their spotlight," she whispered as she drew me onto her lap, her lavender-scented cardigan around me. "You have a light within you, and it's more powerful than you realize." I held on to her necklace tightly when she passed away 2 years later. My parents were so enamored with our new baby Chloe that they hardly noticed my sadness. Here I was at the age of 28, wondering what Grandma would make of all this chaos. Would she encourage me to be a good daughter and keep giving? Or would she see the reality that I was sacrificing my life to support a family that didn't desire me? Once more, I launched my laptop and retrieved the financial documents. On the same day as the $4,000, the 50-cent transfer was also there. It was an intentional, vicious poke. Had Chloe intended for me to spend all my cash on this? While she got all the glory, her comments from a year ago rang true. Let's keep it a secret. I recalled all the times Mom had gotten away with it when we were kids. My mother shrugged when Chloe borrowed my favorite book and tore pages from it, and my father told her to be the big sister Lily when she begged for my bed because hers felt lumpy. I had lived my life squirming and wriggling to accommodate Chloe's light. However, I couldn't turn a blind eye to the fact that you were deceiving our parents and portraying me as a miser while I pushed myself to the bone. My finger paused on Emma Thompson's name as I browsed through my contacts. In the city center, my high school pal Emma had a job as a financial advisor. She had a keen sense of humor and could tell deceit from a distance. She was the only one who could have helped me sort this mess out. In a brief message, I asked, could we meet? Her response was immediate. Pike Place tomorrow noon. Something's going on with Chloe and my parents. Let it out, Lily. I let out a little breath, a glimmer of relief piercing through the darkness. Emma would be able to assist. As I stood up, I noticed my reflection in the glass and shut my laptop. The lack of sleep had left me with a pale complexion and large bags under my eyes. However, the tulip pendant, a small glimmer of optimism, was dangling from my neck. I was determined not to surrender. At this time, no. If I were a tulip, I would definitely bloom. Therefore, I would uncover Chloe's secrets and stand up for what's true. A heavy gray cloud hung over Seattle the next day, as if to provide me a breather from the impending rain. The aroma of freshly baked pastries and roasted coffee permeated the air as I took a seat at a corner table in a busy cafe near Pike Place Market. As I waited for Emma Thompson to arrive, I kept staring at the door as tourists flocked to the famous fish-throwing merchants for photographs. Unanswered from yesterday night, Chloe's text message read, "Call me." My phone lay still on the table. "We must discuss Mom and Dad," she said, her glare unwavering. I had yet to respond. At this time, no. In my mind, like a tempest I couldn't escape, raced the 50-cent transfer, in my name the $4,000 I'd been wiring under Sunshine, and the vicious allegations my parents had leveled against me. Emma was the one person who could save me from this treachery, and she was my lifeline. At precisely noon, Emma strode confidently into the cafe, her fitted jacket contrasting with the mayhem around her. She has a gift for seeing past people's masks. She is now a financial consultant and a friend of mine from high school. As she slid into the seat opposite from me, she remarked, "Lily, you look like you haven't slept in a week." Her piercing yet compassionate hazel eyes swept across my face. "Let it out. What's happening?" Holding onto the tulip pendant around my neck for support, I inhaled deeply. I started by saying it's my family at a low volume. 2 days ago, my parents yelled at me, accusing me of making fun of them with a 50-cent transfer. Chloe is supposedly sending $40,000 monthly, while I am insignificant. But I've been consistently donating $4,000 to Emma. Everything is there in my bank account under Sunshine, just as Chloe and I had discussed. I have no idea why there's a 50-cent transfer under my name. As Emma's fingers tapped the table, a furrow formed on her brow. Half a cent, that's deliberate. A statement it is. Plus Chloe's $40,000 absolute nonsense. Not Kendall Jenner, but a part-time model. She lowered her voice and leaned forward. "Please tell me everything." Sunshine is the perfect place to begin. I recalled Chloe's cheery 1-year-ago phone conversation, during which she insisted that we repay our parents' efforts by sending $4,000 monthly. What I meant to say was that she had said they were in debt due to us. She had my trust. I've been working 2 shifts, Emma, during the week at the food processing factory and on weekends at a Bellevue building site. To make it work, I'm eating very little. They no longer see me as heroic. Instead, they hold Chloe in high esteem. As I continued speaking, Emma's lips formed a narrow line, and her demeanor turned gloomy. After I was done speaking, she crossed her arms and leaned back. "Lily, I have something to tell you, and I warn you, you won't like it." She took a moment to assess my reaction before continuing. "After last week's networking event, I unexpectedly crossed paths with Chloe's mutual buddy. She boasted about how her big sister, who happens to be you, is her personal ATM. She said that you're paying for her lifestyle, but she's been claiming to everyone that she's the one who's been giving your parents a substantial amount of money. Lily, she's not just playing you, she's playing them all." The impact of the remarks was devastating. As the coffee sloshed around in my cup, my hands shook. "What is she?" My voice was shaking as I whispered. "She said that I am her ATM." The sound of the cafe's conversation became muted as the clamor of treachery resounded within me. I was bleeding to death, while my little sister Chloe, for whom I had given my life, pretended to be a saint. In order to keep this family afloat, I remembered the nights I had skipped supper, the weekends I had spent in the bitter cold on the building site, and the dreams I had put on hold. Why was it done that she would deceive and claim the glory? Squeezing my hand, Emma extended her arm across the table. "Lily, I apologize, and that's not all. According to this buddy, Chloe has been spending all her money on luxury clothes from brands like Free People and Anthropology. Also those facials at Jean Juarez that cost $200 modeling jobs aren't going to cover their costs. Yeah, you totally are." Even your folks don't require $4,000 monthly. The mechanic job is still paying your dad $60,000 a year. No one is drowning, even when your mom works part-time. It's simple they're greedy. Along with Chloe, it's being fed. Due to visual blurring, I gazed at the table. I felt completely grounded by the tulip pendant. A tiny echo of Grandma Eleanor's words resounded, "You've got your own light." However, at this very moment, that light felt extinguished. Why would she act in such a way? "As much for myself as for Emma?" I inquired. "I have given her all that I have. For all of my years, I've always made an exception for her. The reason being, because she's used to winning," Emma stated firmly. "Her parents made her the star while they made you the stagehand. She's preoccupied with her reputation, not you. That 50-cent refund to keep you in your place, it's her strategy. Lily, you are not diminutive. For the sake of those who can't see you, you're sacrificing your life." Something within me was kindled by her words. I had repressed my feelings for a long time in an effort to maintain harmony. But this deceit, this treachery was excessive. With trembling hands, I retrieved my phone and phoned Chloe's number. With a cheerful and insincere voice, she answered on the second ring. "Oh, Lily, at last I thought you were trying to avoid me. Stop acting, Chloe." I said, my voice unwavering, even though my heart was racing. "I am familiar with the 50-cent transfer. Your assurances to Mom and Dad that you would be sending $40,000 are well known. You are playing the ideal daughter with my money, I know it. Why your dishonesty is perplexing." After a brief silence, a sharp, icy chuckle escaped. "Oh, Lily, calm down," she remarked. "Think your parents would think you're sending them something. All you are is you. They take pride in me. I gave them the information they desired. Their assumption that you're inexpensive is not my fault." Her words pierced deeply, like a knife. "Is it your fault? I lost it. My body is screaming for help, Chloe. In order to send that $4,000, I'm eating ramen, and you're going around telling your pals that I'm your ATM while you purchase $200 jeans." After a moment of silence, her tone became defensive. "Lily, you consented to it. You wished to lend a hand to your parents. This is not my fault. Plus, I'm advancing in my profession. I have to put on my best act. Being a manufacturing worker, you have no idea what I'm talking about." As I felt the crushing weight of her rejection, the cafe whirled around me. Only an assembly line worker. Lily alone. It is only the shadow. The tulip pendant, however, gleamed like a beacon in the reflection of my coffee cup. Even if Chloe managed to pilfer my parents' love and my money, she would never be able to remove my strength, as Grandma Eleanor had warned. My voice grew icy as I straightened up. "My time is up, Chloe. Proceeds dwindle. End of deceit. Do you aspire to be a celeb?" My pulse was beating, but I felt lighter, like if I had lost a chain I hadn't realized I was wearing. So I hung up before she could react. With a subtle smile teasing her lips, Emma arched an eyebrow. "That's my girl," she remarked. "However, scolding Chloe won't cut it. Lily, halt the payments. The $4,000 isn't necessary. Your folks are only using it to boost Chloe's self-esteem. You're not their bank. It's okay to prioritize your own happiness." When the truth finally hit me, I could only nod. Emma had a point. For what use had I been devoting my entire being to a family that showed no appreciation for me, laughed at with $50? The recurring transfer was the first thing I did when I opened my banking app. The confirmation screen was a silent triumph as I canceled it with a single tap. However, a hint of dread accompanied the relaxation. How would my folks react? Are they going to pursue me? I forced myself to disregard the idea and concentrated on Emma's unwavering stare. "There's something else," I said, my voice quieter this time. "In an old book, I discovered a letter written by my grandma, Eleanor, last night." I retrieved the folded piece of paper from my pocket, its edges weathered from years of concealment. It had been written by her before she passed away. She referred to me as her tulip and assured her that I would always awaken. It had slipped my mind how much she had faith in me. Emma's expression changed. "I mean, she was totally correct. You're doing more than simply getting by, Lily. You're blossoming. But if you're ensnared in the turmoil at home, you won't be able to do it. Release them. There is a life of your own to construct." The weight of the letter anchored me, so I slipped it back into my pocket. The sound of the cafe was heard again, signaling that the world was progressing. I had to confront my parents, even if I wasn't prepared to do so just yet. Put a stop to bending. No more reducing in size. Being someone else's shadow was enough for me. My name was Lily Harper. The first rains landed softly on my skin as I stepped out of the cafe. I remained unfazed. Even this storm would be nothing compared to the worse ones I've endured. Grandma Eleanor was probably watching from afar. I would do my best to earn her approval. When I heard the sharp tap on my apartment door, the rain that had been falling in Seattle had turned into a torrent. On this particular Saturday night, I was enjoying a rare night off from my guard job at the Bellevue construction site. I cuddled up on my worn couch, basking in the warm light of a solitary bulb that illuminated my cramped Capitol Hill studio. As a poignant reminder of Grandma Eleanor's wise words, "You'll grow through any storm," the tulip necklace dangled heavily around my neck. Just 2 days prior, following Emma's discoveries and my conversation with Chloe, I had discontinued the $4,000 monthly transfer to my parents. The consequences will come, but I didn't anticipate them to be so immediate or so powerful. Margaret and Robert Harper. My parents were waiting in the hallway. As I answered the door, their expressions betraying their wrath. The wetness seeped down their jackets and collected on the worn-out floorboards. The stairway behind them had an odor of wet concrete and the flat next door's takeaway. The accusatory, piercing stare of my mother fixed on me. "What on earth are you doing, Lily Harper?" She abruptly shoved by me without asking for permission. As he trailed after, my dad's heavy boots resounded throughout the cramped room. They broke into my safe haven, and I stood there paralyzed with fear. My dad's voice was low and harsh, like a faraway storm, and he whispered, "You stopped the money." With his mechanic's hands curled into fists, he towered over my living room. Everything was spilled by Chloe. "My dear Lily, you are betraying your loved ones. When considering what we've done for you," I shut the door, my palms shaking, but my will unwavering. "Have you done nothing?" My voice was lower than I thought it to be when I spoke. "When I've been sending you $4,000 monthly, you're yelling at me for sending 50 cents. I am not leaving anyone behind. My patience has run out." The sound of my mother's laughter shattered the very fabric of the air. Exited, why no need to act helpless, Lily. This family is being carried by Chloe. Through her modeling job, she is bringing us 40 grand every month. Are you seriously thinking that your pitiful $4,000 is going to make a difference? She exhibited a lack of concern for our need for your leftovers as she crossed her arms her fashionable scarf, which was likely a present from Chloe, shining in the lamplight. With their illusion crushing down on my chest, I gazed at her. $40,000. Despite my best efforts, my voice rose as I spoke. That won't be coming from Chloe. Mother, she's just scraping by on $1,000 each month. She is not famous, but she does work as a part-time model for internet catalogs. I've been sending her the whole $4,000, and she's been taking the glory. Moreover, the 50-cent transfer. That was her ensuring that you would dismiss me as insignificant. My dad flushed and clenched his jaw. Don't you dare deceive about your sister, he said with a sharp tone. A career is being built by Chloe. Her desire and ability are incomprehensible to you. Lily, you're simply envious, was from the beginning. The remarks cut deep, reopening scars from a life spent in Chloe's shadow. While Chloe strutted around in gowns from Nordstrom, I remembered the years I slept in the wet Tacoma basement to make room for her, persuaded that it was my responsibility. As the elder sister, I had ingested it all. Standing in my own apartment, though, I sensed a change, a sudden surge of wrath, as brilliant and uncompromising as the light caught by the tulip pendant. I said, I'm not jealous, as I took a step forward and my voice became more steady. I am exhausted. I am sick and tired of sweating it out. While you bask in Chloe's glory for lying, sick of going unnoticed, tell me the truth. Your obligation to us, according to Chloe, is real. Do you mean that just why is $4,000 each month necessary? An instantary weakness in my mother's defenses showed in her eyes. My dad, who was visibly uneasy, caught her eye as she gazed over him. Right loan. She spoke in a condescending manner. You don't owe anything, Lily. We've done rather well. In Chloe's future, the funds will be used. In order to maintain her reputation and land bigger jobs, she needs it. You have never had to step up to the plate, you just don't get it. A rush of chilly reality washed over me, and I blinked. In full repayment. There is no urgency. Simply said, it's all about greed. So you've been funding Chloe's phony wardrobe facials and lifestyle with my money, haven't you? My voice quivered with astonishment as I said those words. I've been spending my funds on ramen and laboring in the rain on weekends, but for what? Is that so you can treat her like a celebrity by buying her scarves that cost $200? My dad's expression became harder. Keep your tone in check, Lily. We are really proud of Chloe. Her career is on the rise. All you are is you. There is a roof over your head and you have a job. Am I missing anything? Express your gratitude and continue to assist your sister. Even I was astonished by the bitterness of my chuckle. Grateful because I'm your automated teller machine. For being yelled at for more than 50 cents, sorry, Dad. That's it. My life, my goals, and all of my money have been given to you. Unfortunately, you continue to miss me. My mom's voice dipped to an ominous whisper, and her pupils constricted. Lily, we won't require your selfishness any longer. We have Chloe and the estate of your grandma. Did Eleanor leave you $10,000? We'll put it to use on Chloe's next vacation. In any case, you're not deserving of it. The news of Grandma Eleanor's bequest hit like a ton of bricks. Only that $10,000, which would remain in a trust until my 30th birthday, remained as a token of appreciation from the one and only person who had ever loved me without conditions. It infuriated me that they would take it and waste it on Chloe's illusions. With a low, angry voice, I drew closer. I will fight you tooth and nail if you touch that money. Yours is not mine, it is from Grandma. Beyond that, I am no longer your daughter. Unless this is your idea of a family, then no. A look of bewilderment and fury crossed my father's face. As he began to speak, I abruptly ended his sentence by pointing to the hallway and opening the door. I shouted, "Get out," in a voice as sharp as steel. "Stay away from me. Remain here. That's it." My mom seemed to be in pain as she clenched her scarf, releasing a cry. "Lily, you will be sorry for this," she growled. "You'll be all by yourself with nothing to help you." My dad then flashed me a look of pure scorn before grabbing her arm and dragging her to the door. "We didn't bring you up to be this," he said secretly. At their back, the door banged, resonating through the otherwise peaceful flat. Tears welled up in my eyes as I stood there gasping for air. The steady cadence of the rain outside echoed the pain in my chest. After much effort, I had managed to free myself from their expectations by severing the chain that had connected me. However, there was a price to the freedom. Crying aloud, I knelt on the floor with my back to the door. They weren't temporary. They persisted through all the times I had felt invisible, unimportant, and unwanted. The tulip pendant's cold metal anchored me as I grabbed for it. Through the haze, Grandma Eleanor's voice murmured, "You'll bloom, my tulip, even after the harshest winters." This made me think of her Tacoma garden, where rows upon rows of tulips, yellow and red, defied the cold. I wonder whether Mom would be proud if she could see me today. Even though I had lost my loved ones, I may have discovered something new myself. After a quick wipe, I got to my feet and made my way to the window. In spite of the dreary weather outside, the potted tulip, perched on the window ledge, looked beautiful. I had more battles to fight. I intend to continue working for my certification and creating an independent life for myself. My folks might take Chloe in and let her follow her naive ambitions. I was no longer available to them. A calm determination washed over me as the rain reduced to a drizzle. There was still more drama to come. Chloe would lash out, and my parents could try to shame me into submission, but I was prepared. My name was Lily Harper, and I was determined to flourish despite all obstacles. Glancing through my new apartment window, the mosaic of glass and steel that is the Seattle skyline reflected the rare February light, creating a dazzling sight. I had severed the link that bound me to my parents' incessant requests 3 months ago when I banged on their door. No longer did I have to deal with the peeling paint and dripping faucet in my Capitol Hill studio. I felt like I was starting over in my new, modest but cheerful one-bedroom apartment near Lake Union. The view of the lake, with its tranquil surface reflecting the sky, made the exorbitant monthly fee of $2,000 worthwhile. As I held a mug of coffee in my hand, I stood by the window and observed a kayaker gracefully paddling across the lake. I experienced a sense of inhaling my own air for the first time in a long time. In the light, the tulip pendant dangling from my neck reflected Grandma Eleanor's unwavering confidence in me. Her words, "You'll bloom, my tulip," were echoed every day by the vivid petals of the yellow tulips I had placed in a container on the windowsill. And I was flowering, albeit slowly. My parents' expectations, along with the $4,000 a month they had been receiving, had been lifted. The shift from weariness to possibility was real, and I could feel it in my body. My once depleted funds were slowly making a comeback. Instead of reusing an old coat, I went out and purchased a new one, a functional navy blue coat from REI. It was like a minor triumph, a stepping stone to a life that was all mine. My metamorphosis was based on my work. The supply chain management certification was the key that unlocked doors I had never ventured to knock on before, and it had taken months of late-night studying to achieve. A financial consultant buddy of mine Emma put me in touch with a logistics firm in downtown Seattle that handles the supply chains of tech companies. They're a really slick business. I began my role as a coordinator, but my manager saw my natural ability to streamline operations after only a few weeks. I was promoted to team lead last month, which increased my monthly compensation to $500. It was a dream come true to have a first income that could pay the rent, food, and even the weekly coffee at Le Panier without making me feel guilty. I had spent years sorting packages in a fluorescent-lit food processing facility, but my new workplace, which faced Elliott Bay, was a world apart. Sarah, the coworker who had teased me constantly, was a major reason why my previous job continued to nag at me. She had scowled at the fact that I did not have a bachelor's degree and had repeatedly told me that I was not qualified for a managerial position. Ironically, fate can do some hilarious U-turns. Sarah was a junior member of my team when I first started working at the logistics firm. She had just transferred from the plant. As she saw me do the morning briefing and distribute duties with a firm voice, her smug smile faded. I didn't want to brag or make her life difficult, so I refrained from doing either. Rather, I discreetly approached her following a meeting. I said to Sarah, "I know we've had our differences, maintaining a level tone, but I do hope that we can complement one another. Let's start over," she said, her brow furrowing as she bowed and mumbled an apology. I wanted to show myself that I could handle her petty antics, not exact vengeance. That seemed like a turning point. It was the last vestige of the old Lily who had let other people to determine her value. Not only at work, but in every aspect of my life. I was creating something new. I could freely express myself in my flat. From a Fremont charity store, I had purchased a used bookcase, which I had stocked with books on logistics, as well as a couple novels that I had long wanted to read. On the shelf was a framed photograph of Grandma Eleanor's tulip garden, her peaceful grin serving as a subtle source of inspiration. After years of subsisting on quick noodles, I relished the process of preparing my own food and began cooking again, this time making stir-fries and spaghetti. Gasworks Park a Haven for kite flyers and verdant hills was my weekend destination. There I could escape the city's industrial remnants. Forget about merely surviving. Seattle was starting to seem more like home. A new address and some cash weren't the only factors in gaining freedom. Reclaiming my mind and emotions was the main objective. For a long time I fought an internal battle to stop feeling that I was less than Chloe and my parents' goals. As I lay in bed at night, I would stare at the lake reflection dancing on my ceiling and question my actions. When I severed ties with my family, it was like hearing their voices for the first time, a blank and empty sorrow. Emma had told me at Pike Place, "You're not their bank," and every time I touched the tulip pendant, it brought back a memory. It's okay to prioritize your own happiness. She was absolutely correct. By making my own decisions and shining my own light, I was discovering how to fill that gap. Throughout my ordeal, I had companions. "So proud of you, team lead." The texts from Emma, who checked in with you weekly, were a combination of encouragement and sass. "Now go get yourself a cupcake." The Bellevue construction team, notably Mike, would occasionally write me making jokes about how they were missing their toughest guard. Their generosity served as a reminder that family doesn't always mean blood. It might represent the people who witnessed and supported you. Going out to a Belltown pub with my new coworkers for drinks. After work was a great way to get to know them. While listening to their anecdotes and enjoying a ginger ale, I felt at home. The sun sank low as I stood at the window, turning the lake a golden hue. As I delicately touched the borders of the flower pendant, I put my drink down. I was finally starting to believe in myself because, to Grandma Eleanor's unwavering belief in me, I had progressed beyond just survival and was now blossoming like a tulip emerging from the earth in the spring. It wouldn't be an easy journey ahead. The weight of Chloe's deceit may continue to weigh on me, and my parents may attempt to discourage me. Still, I had my chin up and my roots down, so I was prepared to take on the world. Cherry blossoms painted the streets pink as spring bloomed in Seattle, but an unexpected knock at my door made me feel uneasy in my Lake Union apartment. On a brisk April afternoon, listening to a podcast, I was folding clothes 6 months after severing relations with my parents and Chloe. With my new role as team lead at the logistics firm, my reliable monthly income of $5,500, and the blossoming of my sense of self, I felt like I had finally found my home, a gentle reminder that I had decided to blossom according to my own terms. The tulip pendant that hung from my neck, a gift from Grandma Eleanor, served as a stabilizing force. I was surprised to see an unfamiliar figure with a clipboard and a shabby suit when I opened the door, since I had anticipated a neighbor or a delivery. As he scanned the flat, his gaze whizzed by me. "Hannah Lilly," with a tight voice he inquired. "Cascade Financial Services is where I am employed. Margaret and Robert Harper are the ones we need to find. Is this your family?" A chill ran down my spine as the names of my parents resurfaced long-buried memories. I leaned against the doorframe, arms folded. I stated bluntly, "I don't have a family. It is not my concern what they owe." Looking down at his papers, he scowled. As a point of contact, they provided this address: defaulted loans, $50,000 in consumer debt, and everything in between has gotten them into a jam. A daughter who could step in and hide it was brought up. "Is it you?" My laughter reverberated down the hall, a harsh and unpleasant sound. "They are in a dream. We haven't had any communication in months." I was about to shut the door behind him when he said, "Try their place in Tacoma." His subsequent remarks silenced me. "They are no longer in Tacoma," he stated. "They got rid of the house, reside in a dilapidated apartment in Renton at the moment. Just wanted to let you know." Even as the door shut, his comments remained a gaping hole in the barrier I had erected between myself and my history. With the podcast's once encouraging banter now driving me crazy, I collapsed onto my couch. Was the home sold? Who is Renton? What happened to the rickety porch and Grandma Eleanor's tulip garden, the places I spent my formative years? A twinge of sadness twisted in my breast, even though I shouldn't have bothered because those individuals had preferred Chloe's falsehoods to me. The tulip pendant served as an anchoring force, and I touched it. We had each made our own decisions. They had done the same. My curiosity nonetheless persisted. Their whereabouts were a mystery. The response time was really short. The following day, Emma, always the go-getter, called me her voice, betraying both worry and shock. "Lily, you won't believe this," she added, omitting any attempts at small talk. "Someone who knows Chloe's circle of acquaintances told me this. There is chaos in your household." She filled me in, telling me a scenario that was predictable and tragic, like an enormous catastrophe. My golden child sister Chloe had taken a heavy tumble. Her unrealistic expectations had finally brought down her once promising modeling career. Unsavory talent agency scouts had promised to cast her in a Hollywood film last year. They promised her big screen parts and red carpet appearances, but only if she paid a $50,000 investment for training headshots and industry connections. Chloe, who was determined to keep her status as the family star, managed to convince my parents that this was her chance. Margaret sold their Tacoma property, and my dad Robert dipped into his early retirement funds to pay for it. In their haste to cash in on Chloe's celebrity promises, they sent over the cash without first drafting a contract. It was a typical scam. The agency just disappeared. An vacant office with a disconnected phone line. No training, no connections. My folks' life savings and the equity in our family house, totaling $50,000, was completely depleted. While banking on Chloe's fantasy, they took out loans to fund living expenses, leaving them with nothing but debt. As Emma went on, her voice became softer. Lily, they have arrived in Renton now, just 600 square feet, a one-bedroom apartment. Through an agency, your dad is doing temporary jobs. Looks like your mom has a side gig in retail. It's not easy. The tulips on my windowsill were a sight to behold. As the petals danced in the late afternoon sun, I wanted to feel justified in some way, since they had believed Chloe's falsehoods, had taken advantage of my $4,000 investment, and lauded her phony $40,000. A dull soreness, however, quickly replaced the temporary pleasure. Is Chloe next? As I readied myself, I inquired. A heavy sigh escaped Emma's lips. She works as a bartender in Pioneer Square at a dive joint. Modeling is over. She has been boasting about being almost famous, but the regulars simply find it funny. Lily, the once radiant girl, is no longer there. Excessive drinking and late-night parties. It's sad. Disoriented, I hung up the phone. Once a center of attention with her luscious locks and beaming smile, Chloe was now little more than a joke at a pub. The life my parents had constructed around her was crumbling beneath their feet in a Renton ghetto. Ideally, I would have felt liberated, but reality was more chaotic. Even if they had harmed and taken advantage of me, they were still people and the family I had loved before. The framed picture of Grandma Eleanor's garden was the first thing I retrieved from my bookcase. She could count on her tulips to blossom each spring, regardless of how severe the winter. Perhaps the lesson was not to take pride in their failure, but to rise beyond it. My former Bellevue construction site foreman, Mike, texted me a week later. Hey Lily, you want to know who's on my team? Your father. Old man is having a hard time, but he's determined. Claims that his child was a former employee who sent him money. How absurd the message was, as sharp as a diamond. Where I had stood watch before Robert, the same man who had branded me a disgrace, now hauled rebar. As Mike probed for details about the kid who had put forth so much effort for him, I could picture him avoiding inquiries while his haughty shoulders drooped. It went unanswered. So what exactly was said? As the waves crashed on the shore, I found myself standing by the placid lake. A gentle power, the tulip pendant, felt good on my flesh. Neither the downfall nor the triumph of my family was my doing. They lost everything because they pursued a mirage. I had opted for an other route, one that was grounded on honesty and perseverance. I said to Grandma Eleanor, the lake, and myself, as the sun fell below the horizon, I'm not them. It's just the two of us, Lily and myself. I stepped out of the ferry station into a golden light thrown across Puget Sound by the June sun that hung low over Bainbridge Island. The temperature was just right, the air somewhat salty from the ocean, and from a chapel not far away, you could make out the faint sound of a wedding band. I spun the strap of my dress, an understated emerald green gown I had lavished on for Emma's wedding, and felt the delicate bouncing of the tulip pendant on my collarbone. 9 months had passed since I severed links with Chloe and my parents, and in that time I had begun to establish a life that was truly mine. At the age of 29, I came here today to honor Emma, the friend who had shown me my value, and perhaps to get a glimpse of a future I had never dared to dream about. The little wooden chapel sparkled like a strewn gem box thanks to its stained glass windows. As she danced with her new husband, a kind-eyed co-worker called Tom Emma stood a brilliant white, her laughter echoing through the room. As my thankfulness grew, I sat on a pew and observed. Emma had been my anchor. She was the one who had told me, "You're not their bank, Lily," when we sat across from each other at Pike Place. Seeing her happiness brought me a subtle sense of satisfaction in my own path. Like Grandma Eleanor's flowers, I had blossomed, and this moment proved it. Emma, with a cheeky grin on her face, waved me over as the reception started. "Lily, meet James Carter," she urged a towering man to come over to me. Warm brown eyes and a charming crinkle-edged smile characterized James, who was in his early 30s. An architect who loves hiking and, get this, makes a mean latte, James said while laughing, and extended his hand. With an easygoing tone, he remarked, "She's overselling me." On the other hand, I thoroughly like a decent cup of coffee. "Hey, Lily, are you a local of Seattle?" "Born and raised," I said, shaking his hand. He had a sure hold on things, a steady look, and an air of promise and warmth that was reminiscent of a mug of coffee on a cold morning. We started talking and soon were exchanging anecdotes about our favorite Fremont cafes and Cascades hiking routes. My hand went to my necklace the second he brought up the idea of growing tulips in his garden. "Tulips are my thing," I said with a smile. "They're more resilient than they appear." I wager he responded, his tone both fun and genuine. I let out a giggle as a sense of relief washed over me. It had been a long time since I hadn't been unprepared to be compared or judged. For all intents and purposes, I was simply Lily. The festivities continued well into the night as the sky turned a velvety blue. Outside, James and I sat on a bench as a mellow jazz band played music that blended with the sound of the waves. In response to his inquiry about my job, I detailed my position as team lead at a logistics firm, the certification I had obtained, and my tulip-filled windowsill in my apartment on Lake Union. "It seems like you've created something substantial," he remarked. His gaze locked with me. "A lot of people just can't pull that off." "It wasn't easy," I said, reflecting on my past life, with memories of my parents' avarice, the 50-cent transfer that almost shattered me and Chloe's falsehoods. When I was younger, I believed I had to prove myself worthy of success, but I'm discovering I have one already. He nodded, and I felt seen for who I truly am, Lily Harper, rather than as Chloe's sister or the disappointment of my parents. With a sparkle in her eye, Emma drew me away as the night drew to a close. "James and you got along famously," she taunted. She embraced me and said, "I told you he's your type of person." "You are radiant, Lily." I returned her embrace and said, "I am grateful that you helped me discover it. Don't ever let that light go out." As I made my way to the ferry under the twinkling stars, I sensed a fresh beginning. James had given me his contact information and proposed going for a hike next weekend. As I imagined us hiking the slopes of Mount Rainier, perhaps pausing to take her in a meadow of wildflowers, a grin spread over my face. I wanted to give my best to everything right now, from job to love. By delicately touching the tulip pendant, I made a silent vow to Grandma Eleanor that I would continue to blossom. My trip, nevertheless, was about more than simply myself. I had joined a Seattle support group for young women fleeing abusive households, motivated by Emma's volunteer work. Others were inspired when I shared my story of Chloe's treachery, my parents' collapse, and my struggle for freedom. To honor Grandma Eleanor and encourage other ladies to follow their passions, I was going to set aside some of my funds and establish a modest scholarship endowment. It was my little way of making sure other people's tulips would blossom as well. Inside each person, I think, is a flower just itching to burst out. True freedom comes from adopting your own path, even if society frequently pressures us to compare and shrink. With the vastness of the sound stretched out before me, I felt prepared for whatever was ahead as I stepped onto the ship. Under the moonlight, the Puget Sound glistened like a huge mirror reflecting not just the stars but also my own serene contemplations as the boat sailed back toward Seattle. With the tulip pendant resting gently on my skin, I relaxed against the railing and let the soothing beat of the waves to retrace my steps. For everyone who has ever been trapped by the weight of other people's expectations, this is more than just a tale about breaking up with friends or landing a new job. By my side, I could feel Grandma Eleanor's soft grin as she urged me to teach what I had learned not only to myself, but to anybody who would listen to anyone who was struggling to flourish. What I've learned about life is that it's all about finding your own value, no matter how much the world attempts to compare you to another person. I believed I had to show myself for a long time that I was more than just Chloe's plain elder sister in order to achieve my position. However, from where I stand, I am aware that my worth is unrelated to their or anybody else's acceptance. It's in my actions, my dedication, my love, and my self-selection. This is the first lesson nobody has the right to take away your brilliance. You are perfect the way you are. Drawing lines also has its power. I felt like I was severing an anchor when I left my parents and Chloe. The only way to breathe was through it, and it ached like hell. To love is to let go. It's not a sign of being cruel. It's a sign that you deserve tranquility. What I've learned from that decision is that limits are more like gates. They allow in what nurtures you and keep out what doesn't. And I figured out how to forgive myself too. For a long time, I felt terrible about failing to be the selfless daughter my parents had hoped for. I blamed myself for letting their greed get the best of them. Neither their decisions nor Chloe's deceit were my responsibility. Losing that weight was like sowing a seed. It allowed me to flourish. Be kind with yourself first. Your wounds are evidence of your strength, not your failure. The anchor, on the other hand, is what holds you firm amid stormy seas. What meant the most to me was Grandma Eleanor's tulip pendant and the hushed words she would utter night after night. You'll bloom. What else might it be? A song, a memory, or even just a friend like Emma, who notices you even when you don't. In order to remind yourself of your strength, find that anchor and hang on to it. Lastly, I've realized that the key to personal development is helping other people up as you go. For girls like me who have been told we are inadequate, starting that scholarship in Grandma's honor is about more than simply donating money. It's about planting flowers. My personal successes taste better when I help other people achieve their ambitions. We're not here to face the ascent alone, but rather to guide one another. I felt a clap of excitement as the ship pulled into the harbor, the lights of Seattle gleaming ahead. I hope you remember this. Even in the dead of winter, you may blossom like a flower. Believe in yourself and not let anybody, even your loved ones or self-doubt, dissuade you. Make your mark on the world by loving yourself fiercely and living fearlessly. You may create a life that is genuinely yours in that way.